Thank you. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and the Legal Intelligentsia prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. Rachel, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on the screen when you speak.
Councilmember Alan Dom.
Good afternoon, Majority Leader. Good afternoon, colleagues. Hello, everybody.
Councilmember Brian O'Neill.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, Brian.
Councilmember Derek Green.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here for today's hearing. Looking forward to the conversation.
Councilmember Helen Gim.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues, and good afternoon to the viewing public.
Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and colleagues. Thank you so much.
And Councilmember Bobby Heenan.
Thank you, Chairperson Parker. I appreciate it, and thank you for you all being here today.
Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now formally called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Labor and Civil Service on Bill number 200380. Rachel, will you please read the title of the bill?
200380. An ordinance amending Chapter 22-800 entitled Purchase of Credited Service of Title 22 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Public Employees Retirement Code, to allow certain employees to purchase credited service for prior military service without the payment of certain interest for a certain time period, and to make technical amendments, all under certain terms and conditions.
Before we begin to hear testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the public meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewer have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. And before I ask Rachel to call the first panel for Bill number 200380, I would like to acknowledge Councilman Heenan for some opening comments as the bill sponsor. Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Majority Leader Parker. And good afternoon, Chairperson Parker and members of the Labor and Civil Service Committee. I do appreciate the time to make a brief statement on Bill number 200380. I've spoken with Mr. DeBow and Mr. Coughlin, who you will hear testimony from shortly at length, and I'm aware of the challenges associated with balancing the two policy interests: one, enhancing benefits, and two, increasing the pension fund system's funding levels. Generally speaking, when we improve or enhance benefits, we move further away from a fully funded pension system, as you're well aware of. And I want to commend the Pension Board and Mr. DeBow for their work and their leadership with regards to funding our pension system. That said, allowing service members to buy their years of service without interest isn't a new concept. We offered this benefit in 1999, sitting only 107 city employees took advantage of the opportunity at that time. You will hear from Mr. Coughlin that it is possible that offering this opportunity now may encourage and spark an interest of early retirement dates and or a member of our fire department and or other city departments to retire as a result of transferring assets from our deferred income fund to our pension fund, which will move our pension fund closer to 100% funded. Secondly, I want to address something that you will hear in Mr. DeBoe's testimony. He states that he believes that the benefits for representing employees should be bargaining for, and in most cases, I agree. I am a steadfast advocate for preserving the sanctity of collective bargaining process, and wherever possible, I believe represented workers should organize and use the power of the bargaining process to accomplish their goals. But I also believe that there are certain benefits that we should offer regardless of whether or not they are bargaining. Military service has historically been honored and recognized and rewarded in the past. City workers who serve and have served their country in the military made incredible sacrifices that made it possible for us to sit here today talking about their pension benefits. Allowing them to buy their time interest-free is just a small token and appreciation of their service. Although I am not asking this committee to amend or move this bill out of committee today, I'm asking that the administration and the pension board, especially the firefighters, Mr. Coughlin here today, to evaluate the legislation in detail and consider other ways to support service members in the fire department and across our city workforce. So, Madam Chair, I thank you for your time and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Councilman Heenan, for your comments. Rachel, will you please call the first panel we have to testify this afternoon on bill number 200380?
Rob DuBois and Brian Coughlin.
Good afternoon. Which one of us would you prefer go first?
Oh. 1 second. We have a new dog and we have to get him outside. So this is what happens virtually. We're training them with the bathroom, Councilman Dom. 1 second, please. Okay, do I see, are both of you on now?
I think
Rob, I see you.
Yes, Councilwoman, I'm on too. Brian Coughlin here.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Rob, if you could just open, and then Brian, if you could follow Rob, that would be great.
Okay. Great, thanks. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Parker and members of the committee. I'm Rob DuBois. I'm Service Finance Director, and I'm here to testify against Bill number 200380. The bill would allow employees of the fire department to purchase prior military service to count towards their pension calculation without paying the interest that's normally required to make such a purchase. For reasons I'll explain in the testimony, administration opposes the bill. As you know, working with unions, pension board, council, state legislature, administration has crafted a plan would take the pension fund from its current status at slightly under 50% funded to over 80% funded within the next decade. The plan has required shared sacrifice and contributions from union members who will see higher contributions, and for new non-uniformed employees, a restructured benefits plan. It's also required more from other taxpayers as the city contribution has increased, including through dedicating a portion of sales tax revenues. The pension board has also played a key role by improving investment returns while cutting the cost of those investments by millions of dollars. In addition, the board has lowered the risk of the fund's investments by doing things like eliminating hedge funds from its holdings. All that shared work has led to slow but steady increases in the pension fund's funded percent and a sustainable path to increased funding that the Pew Foundation said made the city's pension system much more likely than other cities' pension systems to continue to increase its funded percent regardless of market conditions. That hard work and the progress it's created lead us to oppose any steps that we think would move the pension fund in a different direction by enhancing benefits. This bill would take a step in the wrong direction for the pension fund because it would mean the fund would be giving up the interest that it typically receives when employees buy back military time. The administration also believes that changes in benefits for represented employees would be more appropriately addressed through the collective bargaining process. Finally, we believe that before any action is taken on the bill, an actuarial analysis should be performed on its potential cost to the pension fund. And I should also add that I have talked to the sponsor and to Mr. Coughlin, and we have all agreed that we should continue to work to see whether there are ways to get at the intent of the bill, even if it's not this exact formation. So thank you for the consideration and the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Rob, for your testimony. Brian, are you there?
Councilwoman, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. I can see you now, Brian. It's different. I'm hearing your voice and we're talking, but I couldn't see you. So, Brian, listen, state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Rob. My name is Brian Coughlin. I'm an elected employee representative to the Board of Pensions and Retirement. I've been, proudly serving in that role for the past 6 years, and like Rob mentioned, since my time started there, we've worked tirelessly together with the other trustees, with the chair, to reduce the cost, which were pretty significant when I got there, that we were paying. We improved and stabilized the investment performance. That is absolutely true. And we've increased the funding level, both from increased contributions from the city and the employees. We were hit in our last contract with an increase in our contribution with no increase in benefit. I want to make that clear. I believe as trustees of the plan, we are entrusted and actually expected by all city employees and taxpayers alike to constantly seek ways to improve the performance and lower the overall cost to the taxpayers. I don't think anyone on this call would disagree with that. I'm presenting today to request that eligible employees be given an opportunity to purchase their prior military service without interest. I can summarize over the next few minutes why I believe this makes sense and how it actually reduces the cost to the city in the long term. The one key point that I disagree with Mr. Dubois, there's an assumption made that this will cost the pension system, this will hurt the funding level, and there's an assumption made that this is a cost, not a benefit. We've never had an actuary look at that. I think that's the key here, is that there are ways to get things done, and I'm going to explain that. But I really disagree that we assume this is a cost. I don't like that. I think we have to assume that this is a different way of looking at things. In the past, the city has offered tax amnesty, and it's worked pretty well, right? We've gotten revenue streams in the door by thinking differently. So that's what I'm asking for today, is that we actually look at this rather than just assume that it's a cost. So I'm going to take a quick step to explain pension. I think pension can be a very confusing topic for a lot of people. So I just want to take a couple minutes to explain that. The normal cost of the pension plan to the city is actually very low when you compare it to what they're actually paying. The normal cost for 2021 is projected to be just over $100 million, where the amortized payment is over $600 million. That's the city paying for previous underfunding many, many years ago. And to Mr. Dubois' credit, he's addressed it nicely in recent years, but the bulk of the payment is for the amortization, not for the normal cost of pension. So that being said, the goal is to get the fund to 100% funded as fast as possible. When you have a 100% funded pension fund, your amortization cost is zero. So you're truly paying the normal cost year by year, which in some of the slides I showed you, the cost drops from $700 million a year down to about $100 million. It's a significant savings when you get to the 100% funding. So to understand how do we fund our pension system? Well, there's three sources of income. There's the employee contributions. That's what we as employees pay out of each paycheck. There's the employer, which is the city's cost. I just spoke about that. And in a properly funded pension fund, the biggest source should be your investment return. Our current budgeted rate of return is 7.55%. So you can see where if we were fully funded, that investment return would be providing significantly more income to the fund than the employer or the employees. So we should be working towards getting to 100% funded as fast as we can. So the point of this is quite simple. Right now, Nationwide is a third-party administrator that we hired to manage our deferred comp, our 457 plan. They do a great job. And currently, the assets under management that are all of the employees own these assets, 100%, is just about $3 billion. That's about half of what we have in our pension fund. So there's a significant amount of assets in deferred comp. The goal of my ask today, why wouldn't we want to transfer those assets across the floor to the pension fund? Why are we letting a private contractor, and that's their job, if there's no fault of theirs, but they make money on that $3 billion. Why, when we're 50% underfunded, wouldn't we look at ways to transfer that money across the floor into our pension fund? And therefore, we can make the 7.55%. We can reduce the city's overall normal costs going forward. And there's other ways we're going to save money, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So in the end, that's the ask here, because you can pay for this military buyback with deferred comp assets. It's considered a rollover. There is no taxable event for the employee. So we assume most employees in this day and age who have healthy deferred comp accounts are going to transfer the money from Nationwide to the City of Philadelphia pension fund. So that's where I consider this a big win. Mr. Dubois talked about this. I think Councilman Heenan. We've done this before in 1999. Only 107 city employees took advantage of this. Now, back in 1999, deferred comp was a very new concept. The account balances were just low. So I think that was a big deterrent. You really had to reach into your own pocket, which is a tough thing for city employees to do. We don't make a lot of money, right? Now, with the deferred comp assets being where they are, I think we would see an increased usage if we were to offer a benefit like this in some form. I also believe strongly, and this is where I think, and I'll stress I think, this is where I want to take an actuary and take a good hard look. I have to believe the city's finances are very strained right now, as is most of the country and probably the world, for obvious reasons, right? And that is going to lead to some tough decisions not too far down the road. And I don't want to get into that today, but it's going to be tough. If we can motivate employees through a plan like this to possibly retire early and cover some of our losses through attrition, I think that would make more sense. And I certainly think that as city council representatives, you would maybe want to do that versus layoffs, furloughs, other things we've done in the past to make up for budget shortfalls. So any newly hired employee today, citywide, gets hired for pension reasons under what we call Plan 16, which came about in 2016. They're much higher contribution rates. For the fire department specifically, a new employee pays 8.5% contribution rate under Plan 16. Anyone hired before that, which is the bulk of our people that we think would take advantage of this, our older employees, they're either paying 6% or 6.84%. That's over 2% less towards their pension. That's a pretty big savings if we can get the lesser contributing employees off the payroll and replace them with higher contributing employees. Of course, newly hired employees earn significantly less pay. We have longevity pay in the fire department, and approximately every 5 years, we get a bump in pay. Well, a 30-year employee is going to make a heck of a lot more than a brand new employee, even if they're at the exact same rank. So there's certainly a cost savings to be looked at there. Newly hired employees, because of contract changes over the years, they earn significantly less leave balances. And by that, I mean their sick and their vacation time is significantly less every month than what we're paying some of the older employees. That will provide a pretty significant savings if we can replace those employees. And we have to assume that new employees, the average age would be lower than the employees that would retire. And there are a plethora of health plan studies out there that show that once an employee reaches the age of 55, they become very expensive for our health plan, which is self-funded by the City of Philadelphia. So direct savings by getting rid of those older employees, more tenured employees, and replacing them with new employees. So in summary, I believe we need to explore this concept to better determine the potential cost and benefits to the employees, the pension fund, and the taxpayers. In a time when the city finances, as I've mentioned, are most certainly under strain, I strongly believe this could prove to be a cost-effective manner to motivate longer-term employees to consider retirement at an earlier age and allow the city to recognize cost savings for many, many years to come. Thank you for your time, and I'm certainly open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Rob and Brian, for your testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Heenan?
Thank you, Chairperson Parker. It's more of just a kind of a quick, overall on the testimony that we just heard. Mr. DeBoe, I think there's some interesting points. One, I know that you're protecting as a fiduciary responsibility our pension fund, and we are, on our way, and we have done much better over the years that we are now than we have over the years. Some interesting points that were made: early retirement, all right, reducing the cost of our fund and benefits as opposed to layoffs or furloughs. I think that's interesting. And these are some of the takeaways, which I hope that you and Mr. Coughlin could get together and discuss. An actuariist, I don't believe that has been, steps have been taken in the past for that. And, because the conversation is now real. And, other things that you could take a look at that as the bill is introduced, the window of opportunity is 12 months. It doesn't have to be that long, just like any amnesty programs. And the years of service, all right, the buyback is 10 years. That also is and should be on the table for conversation. So, when we have a workforce that is aging and has a lot of years of service, something like this, at least the conversations and the steps forward could entice and incentivize people for retirement, which will also take a strain off our pension fund. So I guess that's more of a statement, but I would like to ask Rob DeBoe if he had anything to add to that, or if he agrees that, those several issues that were just raised will be something that he's willing to take a look at.
Yeah, and I think that what Mr. Coughlin and I agree on is that the next step should be to have an actuarial report to look at what the impact of the program would be. And I think that would probably help frame the discussion going forward.
Thank you, Councilperson.
Thank you, Councilmember Heenan. Chair recognizes Councilmember Dom.
You're
muted. Dom, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Chairperson Parker, for this hearing today. And thank you, everyone who's joined in. And please, Chairperson Parker, thank Max for those comments earlier for me, okay? I think this is a good discussion to have. In fact, it's like really an extension of this morning, which I spent listening to you, Chairperson Parker, and other panelists talk about retirement savings and just how important it is to teach people how to save for retirement and keep themselves out of trouble in the future so they have really economic benefits as they get older. But making sure we do right by our city employees is also something we need to consistently be on top of. They put a lot of hours in working for the city, so I'm grateful for any new ideas we can review in this body to help out our city employees. I do think, though, when we raise opportunities like this bill does in council, and as we've talked about earlier, we have to do some due diligence and fully understand the complete financial and operational impact our decision has on the system overall. So with that, as this conversation continues after today, I hope we'll make an effort to review the fiscal impact analysis of these types of ideas before any votes or bargaining discussions occur. And I hope we can make that a feature of all these discussions regarding pension-related bills into the future. Thank you very much, Chairperson Parker. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Don. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, let me just note for the record, Rob, and to Brian and to Councilmember Heenan, thank you for your leadership and just helping to generate the discussion. I also appreciate you all. I mean, Brian, even in your comments, Councilman Heenan, it's always music to my ears when we affirm, and Councilmember Dom, when we affirm when the city finally gets it right. And that we we are moving in the right direction. We're just under 50% and trying to figure out how we get to 80% funded within the next decade. Councilmember Heenan, when I was in Harrisburg, and Councilmember Dom, people would have thought that was just unbelievable. It was impossible. But we put a lot of those safeguards in place, a lot of those new sustainable revenue generating forces that we could contribute to the pension fund so that we could move in a direction of solvency. And let's not forget the work of the board. And oh God, I'm getting Fran Bielli and his team and Rob and some people who are no longer here, Sade and is Matt Stitt. It's just been a whole team of people working with the Bryants, of the world and all of the collective bargaining units from all of our labor unions that have helped us get there. So, Councilman Heenan, I thank you for your leadership in bringing this issue to the forefront, and Councilmember Dom for your echoing the importance of us, knowing 1,001% the fiscal impact that any decision making that we are going to consider in the future relative to our pension fund, that we take that into consideration. So I want to thank you all. And Bryant, Rob, I don't know if you said it, but this was my first time hearing you, Bryant. I'm going to have to call you and have some conversations about pensions, because I like the fact that you like pensions, and they're not usually topics that people like to talk about.
I enjoy working with this board, so thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Let me get back here. Oh gosh, where are we? If there are no more questions for this panel, Rachel, can you please call the next panel scheduled to testify?
There is no other panel scheduled to testify.
Okay, give us just 30 seconds here. We've got to get back there. Okay, if there are no other comments or no one else here scheduled to testify on this bill, and due to the fact that the sponsor of the bill, Councilman Heenan, I just want to note for the record that due to the fact that the sponsor of the bill has agreed to hold the bill number 200380 in committee, this is actually going to conclude the business of the Labor and Civil Service Committee for today. The public hearing is recessed to the call of the chair, and we want to thank all of our colleagues for being here so much, and to Rob and Brian, thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you around.